Sensitive brier. Kids love it, kids hate it. This is one of my favorite plants to show kids when they visit Hamilton Native Outpost, but it's got some nasty parts about it too. The fun part is that the leaves close up. So when you touch the leaves of a sensitive brier, they're all outright, and then you touch them and they close up like this. And that's why it's called sensitive brier, is because the leaves are sensitive to touch. And it's thought that this may be an adaptation to grazing, to herbivory. So despite the briars on it, it's actually quite palatable plant. Cattle really like to graze it, for instance, and it has a high protein content. So they come down, they reach their nose in here, they take a bite, they're like, wow, that's good stuff, I'm gonna take another bite. And they look back down and the leaves have all closed up and they're like, where'd my supper go? And so then it's less visually apparent that that plant is there, and then they don't tend to take bites off of it further. So that's why it's believed to be sensitive. But kids don't care about that. They just care to watch it. And if you take them out to a plant, they'll have the whole thing closed up because they want to watch it time and time again. The part about sensitive brier that's not so kid-friendly is the briers. So the sensitive part of the name is the fun part. The brier part of the name is the not fun part. It also has some very creative names like devil's shoelaces or cat's claw sensitive brier. And the reason for that is if you're a barefoot kid or a kid with shoes on even, and you're wearing your short breeches around, when you run through these plants, they will scratch up your legs, and it looks like a cat got a hold of your legs and scratched. So it can make pretty vicious looking scratch marks on your legs. Probably not going to bleed to death from it, but nonetheless, it can look a little ugly and of course cause tears on the parts of the kids. So that's the not fun part about it, but it is a great plant to show kids when they want to see native plants, to get them to interacting with it. And of course the plant has a lot of other interesting benefits. There's a bee on it right now collecting pollen and nectar from these flowers. So it has a host of wildlife benefits. It's a pretty flower. I actually like the flowers of this quite a bit. So from a landscaping standpoint, a wildflower meadow standpoint, on a dry site, I really like it too. It's a palatable plant. So there's just so many good things about it. But in a kid-centric area, or an area where you want to take kids out to meet native plants, this is one of my favorites. So when you're showing the kids how to do this, it seems to work best if there's a sudden movement instead of a slow movement. So if we flick it or get a stick and hit it, or something like that, as opposed to, and it is fun to do this as well, and the newer leaves will display the reaction better, but it's not as quick when you just gently touch the leaves. But you can go back and touch them some more and watch them continue to close up. So it's actually kind of fun to do both. But the most rapid and definite reaction comes when you flick it or give it a sudden movement. So if your kids are old enough to understand what's actually happening in the plant, it's kind of fun to help them understand the science, the physiology inside the plant of what's happening. This is not a super common reaction, obviously. A lot of plants don't have this reaction. But here's what happens. So you've got these cells at the base down there called a pulvinus. They're a specialized cell. And when their touch occurs, whether that's an insect feeding, whether that's a stick or a leg walking through the plant or whatever it is, there is an electrical impulse that tells those cells, hey, it's time to do your thing. So this electrical impulse goes to those pulvinus cells. Some of those cells get the potassium and chlorine rush out. Others, the calcium rushes in. And this causes the water, in effect, to rush into these cells and close those leaves. So you go from the touch to the electrical impulse to the calcium, potassium, chlorine, all moving one way or the other, in or out, and then the water rushes in, the leaf closes. And that happens so quick. It's amazing to me to watch it when I do flick them and just watch them close up, like how fast that can happen. All of those steps in that process are happening that quick. I'm Elizabeth with Hamilton Native Outpost, and we love sharing things about native plants, including things that we can do with our kids to teach the next generation about native plants and native ecosystems.